Euro currency opens the week a huge wide trading range, actually the third widest range of 2022. The other 2 days were on Thursday of last week and February 3rd. So February has been a very volatile month for the euro right now, hovering just above 112. We did dip back below 112 briefly on the open during the overnight session, but things calmed and we saw the dollar, which had spiked higher, come back lower. We saw the euro currency move back higher. But again, hovering right around 112. So we're not seeing it extend to new highs. And clearly, there are still more questions and answers around there. A lot of the hope and optimism that was priced into the euro based on the idea that the European Central Bank might be raising rates this year seems to have been put aside. At this point, it's all about risk assets. It's all about geopolitical risks, economic risks, and yes, even some central bank risk priced in there. But ultimately, hovering right around 112 as we end the day. Didn't settle below it. Clearly, we only had to settle there going back to last Thursday. And prior to that, January, and prior to that, June of 2020. So again, we are right on some critical lows as we speak. But again, ending the day north of that 112 level. Now, what does this all mean for volatility? Well, if you check out that CVOL index over at cmegroup.com, you will notice that volatility has been trending higher. And if you, as I mentioned earlier, these price ranges continue to be wider and wider, especially over the last week or so, that tends to lend to see volatility moving higher. So we're seeing some spikes that are being pulled, that we're seeing pullbacks, but what we're seeing is higher highs in volatility marked by higher lows. So that's what we're seeing as the trend moves higher. If you look at that chart, you'll see it just continues to push higher. And granted, there is some uncertainty out there, and that's one of the main reasons why we're seeing volatility move higher. That fear versus greed trade that we typically talk about when we look at volatility, right now it seems to be fear taking over as opposed to greed, and ultimately volatility moving higher. Lastly, let's look at positioning. What are speculators doing in the euro currency? Well, they're adding to their longs. They've been continuing to do that since the beginning of the year. A lot of that, again, put on hope and optimism that the central bank there will be looking to raise rates in 2022 after previously saying they weren't going to have any business doing that. But again, a lot has changed here. So keeping an eye on the dollar, keeping an eye on the euro and other European currencies, you'll see volatility moving higher. You'll see them moving in and out. But ultimately, speculators remain long, at least as of middle part of last week. That didn't take into account the big move we saw on Thursday. We'll get those numbers this Friday, so it should be interesting to note if we see any position changes based on the trade that we saw last Thursday and Friday. So the euro currency opening up the week just slightly lower, but holding above that critical 112 level. And don't forget, here domestically, we have Federal Reserve Chairman Powell speaking on Wednesday and Thursday. Obviously, that'll have a direct impact on the dollar, which will ripple effect into all other currencies.